Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon and welcome back. It is my great pleasure and honor to welcome all of you again this afternoon.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. حضورنا الكرام، ففي هذا المساء المبارك نود أن نرحب بكم مرة أخرى في مؤتمر الحكمة الدولي في الثقافة والأديان.
Now we will proceed with a plenary session. The chair for the plenary session will be Yang Berbahagia Professor Emeritus Dato Dr. Sulaiman Mat Yassin, Professorial Chair Institute of Wellbeing, University Islam Malaysia.
الآن ستباشر الجلسة العامة التي يرأسها الأستاذ فخري دكتور سليمان مات ياسين، الأستاذ الكرسي لمعهد الرفاهية للجامعة الإسلامية بماليزيا. كما يشاركه في هذه الجلسة العامة المتحدثون الأجلاء. فليتفضل الأستاذ رئيس الجلسة مشكورا.
I would like to invite Yang Berbahagia Professor Emeritus Dato Dr. Sulaiman Mat Yassin to chair the session and to proceed with the introductions of the speakers. Please welcome Yang Berbahagia Dato.
Bismillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. And very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending the most important session of the 2 days before the closing. I see that participants are just trickling in. We have quite a reduction in number of participants today, but I suppose that's normal. That's normal. Huh? I once attended a international conference, something like this, no? With so many concurrent sessions. I went to one of the sessions, and I was supposed to deliver my paper there, and I saw that there was only one member in the audience. So after finishing my paper, I went down to thank him, furiously thanking him, you know. And then he told me that he's the next speaker. So I have to stay on and no. That's just to wake you up. Ladies and gentlemen, we're still also waiting for Professor Dato Muhammad Bakar. Inshallah, you know, he'll be with us. But I think we have to go on. And I should start by introducing each member, but as they come forth to speak. First of all, I think we will give the honor to Professor Mudassir Abdul Rahim. Yeah. He is a very distinguished professor, yeah, and the head of the Human Rights Program in the UIM here. Very, I suppose, very colorful career so far. No? Professor of Political Science, very distinguished academic fellow. He has been in ISTAC, and he has been teaching all over the world, from Manchester, Temple, Rabat, Uganda, Nigeria, Khartoum. They say that there are two kinds of people in this world. No? One is you have been to Africa, and one you have not been to Africa. But Professor Mudassir has been everywhere. He has also been ambassador to the Scandinavian countries, UNESCO senior expert in social science, vice chancellor, and I would like to point out here that he has one book. He has given me. He has presented me today one book, the human rights tradition in Islam, published by Prager. Yeah, thank you, Prof. Thank you very much. Yeah. And founding member and Secretary General of the Sudanese National Committee of Human Rights, and for his good work, he has been awarded the Jordanian Royal Medal for distinguished contributions in 2013. Professor Mudassir, you have about exactly about 35 minutes to deliver your paper. Okay, thank you. Please, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for your eloquent and gracious introduction. I think I'll use I don't know how to do it. Yes, this is the one. So what do I do? This way. Okay. Chairman, dear colleagues, professors, friends, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I don't know when this next speaker is going to turn up, but let us hope that something like that might happen today, like yours. The topic that I have been asked to address this afternoon is a very important and complex, but hopefully, I think, very interesting topic. It is, as you can see, humanity at the crossroads, and I do think it is at the crossroads at the moment. And I'll be focusing mainly on possibilities of survival through the collective wisdom of mankind, with a special look at the contributions or possible contributions of Islam and the Ummah Islamiyah, inshallah. In terms of scientific knowledge and technological ingenuity, extending from subnuclear physics and microbiology to outer space and beyond, humanity, as we all know and are aware undoubtedly, has in modern times achieved hitherto unimaginable progress in various fields with great benefits in material prosperity and general well-being for large numbers of human beings, though not all around the globe. Obviously, in fields like health and medicine, education and information, transportation, communications, and so on, but also, and perhaps most dramatically, in connection with the fascinating cosmological sciences nowadays, a better understanding, ever expanding and more accurate and stimulating and puzzling, in some ways, teasing understanding of man's place in the multiverse. I'm not using the word universe. We are told by experts in this field that it is no longer a universe, that it is actually a multiverse. Many universes, expanding, fascinating. Anyway, knowledge, in terms of knowledge and technological skills, there have been tremendous progress, achievements. Ironically, however, these same achievements, the same enhanced scientific and technological achievements have increased man's ability to destroy not only humanity on Earth, but also other species around the globe, including this small spaceship, planet Earth itself, on which mankind has been living together with innumerable species for many, many millions of years, since time immemorial. And that this is really the pointer towards the challenges that faces mankind now. The dramatic problems that are hovering over our heads in connection with the climate and the environment are numerous and many. I can only mention the words without going into any details. There is no time for that, and I take it that the subject is very well known and understood. But also, in addition to what human beings have been doing to the climate and the environment, there is the challenge also of the fact that lethal weapons, biological, chemical, and nuclear, have been developed and are stockpiled by the thousands and the tens of thousands on Earth, in the air, under the water, and underground around the globe. And there are enough of these weapons to destroy this small spaceship, planet Earth, as I mentioned earlier, whether accidentally or intentionally. And there are people like Trump who are following, who could easily do that kind of thing, intentionally or otherwise, can destroy this planet Earth with all the species that exist on it, including mankind. Not once, not twice, but many times over. Even apart from that, the 20th century, which had earlier been expected to be a kind of century in which humans will be blessed with the positive results of advances in science and technology, etc., etc., etc. The 20th century has already been described by some very thoughtful and judicious historians as having been the bloodiest in human history. Over 100 million people perished in war of one kind or another during the 20th century. In the 19th century, there were problems, there were conflicts, there were wars of all kinds, but less than 20 million were then killed, and so on and so forth. But exponentially greater numbers in the 20th century. That is quite frightful, of course, and the prospects are also quite worrying. So we need to think about how humanity might survive. And to this end, it is suggested here that it is rationally, ethically, as well as pragmatically necessary for mankind, drawing upon its collective resources of shared wisdom, indigenous, religious, secular, and otherwise. And yesterday we had a good discussion, several good discussions about this. Humanity has to draw on the collective resources of shared wisdom to urgently develop profound awareness of the vital importance of, as well as serious practical commitment to effective and sustained cooperation between all human beings the world over in order to work out ways and means of avoiding calamity, which is much nearer to realization, unfortunately, than we normally tend to think. The objective of this collective effort on the part of human beings, regardless of differences in outlook, worldview, etc., would be the realization of cooperation to develop and embrace such specific qualities and attributes as inclusiveness, tolerance, and respect for the dignity and human worth of all men and women, both individually and as members of their many and diverse cultures, faith systems, and modes of living. To that end, of course, a lot of work has been done already since the Second World War. The UN, to take one very obvious example, was established with a view to doing precisely what I've been talking about, getting humanity away from accidental or intentional annihilation, self-annihilation, and the UN system as a whole, not just the main bodies in Geneva and New York, etc. Then great efforts in connection with the processes of great importance of decolonization and self-determination of peoples, including, of course, dismantling apartheid, and most recently, of course, the climate deal, which was signed and is being celebrated around the globe nowadays in Paris. And this is very, very important agreement, a very important agreement, although it is being challenged and criticized as as not really likely to deliver all that is being promised in it. Anyway, a lot of efforts have been made and continue to be made. I mentioned 2 or 3 of them. But unfortunately, in spite of all the profound ethical and intellectual commitment, the efforts of many, in fact, many successive generations of very able people, each one of these systems has been, to some extent, disappointing in practice, failure to deliver. The UN system, of course, is supposed, first of all, as we all know, to get humanity away from warfare and so on. Never again, it was said after the Second World War, are we going to have this kind of experience again? And definitely not the Holocaust that the Nazis inflicted on many people, 20 million people, including, of course, Jewish communities. However, we've had things like Bosnia about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and then Rwanda, and more recently, the tragic destruction of Iraq, and the ongoing barbarities today, still with us this afternoon, in Syria. And these are only examples. In fact, last night I was wondering to myself, and I think I probably mentioned it to somebody, we're sharing a table. I think I said that I've been wondering, has the Muslim world, has humanity seen anything like this since 2058 when Hulagu Khan destroyed Baghdad? And then, apart from the qualified successes of the great disappointing failures of the UN, there has been a revival of anti-democratic and even racist movements, including in countries like the US, the UK, France, Switzerland, Norway, and so on and so forth. And today, by the way, looking at the New York Times, I notice there is a long article about this age of a kind of new dark age. I was not able to read the whole article, but it was exactly about this point, which I had already noted here. And then, of course, there are things like Israel. There is no time to talk about this. There is no need to talk about it in any detail now. But the point is that Israel has, from the very beginning to this day, and it looks as though it is going to continue for a long time, has been defiant of international legality, including the UN, etc., etc., in very many ways. And of course, as everybody knows, Israel is fully supported to the hilt by countries that talk about international legality and human rights and the rest of it, including the US itself. Apart from these failures and problems, there are the big challenges, relatively new, with globalization, international narcotic trade. This is a very powerful movement. And there is also the new slavery, the sex slavery, which is another great challenge and global business, including the victimization of small children. And these things are run as businesses with trillions and trillions of dollars involved and thousands of people around the world. So there are plenty of problems and causes for heartache and disappointment, etc., etc. The point I would like to make at this juncture, however, is that setbacks and disappointments notwithstanding, there can be no turning back, given that the common objective is none other than the survival of humanity. The collective salvation kit of humanity's collective wisdom, focused on things like inclusiveness, tolerance, mutual respect, and effective cooperation for the benefit of all, must continue. It must continue to be supported and enriched by forging increasingly more appropriate and efficacious methods for their realization. To that end, I don't want to give a sermon, but really, to that end, I feel that no stone should be left unturned. All sources of wisdom, however unfamiliar or unlikely they may appear to be for some, must be carefully and critically examined and evaluated. I don't know, is this thing working? With that end in mind, it is suggested here, and I'm moving on to the heart of our discussion. It is suggested here that contrary to both the prejudiced, Islamophobic, and right-wing positions that are rife and spreading on both sides of the Atlantic, and also, in spite of the repulsive image of Islam, oftentimes projected by some of its own misinformed adherents, on the other, a careful and fair-minded examination of the teachings of Islam as enshrined in its foundational texts clearly shows that the requisite values of inclusiveness, tolerance, respect for the dignity and human worth of all men and women, as well as of commitment to cooperation for the common good, all these are indeed core values and principles of Islam. No less importantly, however, a careful and judicious study of the actual conduct of Muslim societies in history, though by no means without many tragic failures, would also reveal that the said values and principles have been remarkably and oftentimes brilliantly reflected in the actual practice of the Ummah in history. And this, not only during the more dynamic and creative stages of Islamic civilization, but also, and no less significantly, during periods in the course of which the Ummah was down politically and backward, culturally, etc., and so and economically weak also. This is remarkable. A few examples, I will now proceed to give a few examples of this. claim. First of all, in connection with the important point of recognizing and accepting and acting upon the fact that humanity is one, that we are all together in this. In that connection, we are aware, I don't need think to elaborate too much about this, that the teachings of Islam include emphasis in the Quran, repeatedly stated, of the unity and oneness of mankind. Oftentimes, coupled with the idea that the only valid basis for distinguishing between the otherwise equal members of humanity is moral excellence expressed in good thoughts and deeds. The passages from the Quran on this point that could be cited are numerous. For example, in Surah An-Nisa, the very first ayah, O mankind, be conscious of your sustainer who has created you out of one living entity, and out of it created its mate, and out of the two spread a multitude of men and women. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة إلى آخره. And then, of course, in Surah Al-Hujurat, another example, O people, behold, we have created you all out of a male and a female, and have made you into nations and tribes so that you might come to know, not to despise one another. Verily, the noblest of you in the sight of God is the one who is most deeply conscious of Him. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. So the first point is that this first issue of whether humanity is one or not is very clearly is obvious in the light of the Quranic teachings, some of which I have mentioned. There are many others. There is a lot more to be said had time been on our side. Another important thing that humanity, I think, has to strive for in order to avoid calamity, disaster that would annihilate everybody, human and non-human on earth, is the question of dignity and rights. And among the innumerable blessings which the Lord Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has gratuitously conferred upon mankind, as is stated in the Quran, is indeed dignity. In Surah Al-Isra, and indeed we have conferred dignity on the children of Adam entire, and borne them over land and sea, and provided for them sustenance out of the good things of life. لقد كرمنا ولقد كرمنا بني آدم وحملناهم في البر والبحر ورزقناهم من الطيبات. The consensus of commentators, mufassirun, etc., is there on this, and I mentioned in particular Al-Alusi, is very much like this, that dignity has thereby been conferred on mankind entire, the believers among them and the non-believers, the pious and the sinners alike, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is on the basis of the divine gift, this divine gift of dignity, thus conferred on mankind entire, and in order to protect the gift in question, that Muslim jurists had, by the 9th century, had already elaborated a very remarkable and unprecedented, and until very recently, unparalleled system of human rights. I quote here Count Leon Ostrorog. He gave a few lectures, 3 lectures, in the University of London in 1927, been published by the University of London Press then, on the Angora reforms, talking about what was going on at that time in Turkey, emerging from what used to be the Ottoman Empire. He says, and I think it is clear, but it is worth reading through, the principles of the rights of man in those very terms, comprehending the rights of individual liberty and the inviolability of person and property, described government as based on a contract, elaborated a law of war of which the humane, chivalrous prescriptions would have put to the blush certain belligerents in the Great War. The Great War, of course, was the First World War that he was referring to. And expanded, these scholars expanded the doctrine of non-Muslim creeds, so liberal that our West had to wait 1,000 years before seeing equivalent principles adopted. Of course, there are differences in approach to human rights between the secular approach, which was adopted in 1945. In the course of the discussions, some representatives of Catholic countries from Latin America suggested that, well, dignity is indeed the source of the basis, the foundation of human rights. It was being written at that time, the Declaration of Human Rights. But let us state the origin of that dignity. And they argued quite passionately that God must be written into the document. As it happened, however, it was decided that there should be no reference to God in any of the UN human rights documents, including and beginning with the Declaration of 1948. That is one important difference between the Islamic system, which of course is based on belief in God, rooted in faith as something that has been granted to humanity, human beings, all of them, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another difference, of course, is that in the Islamic system, there is an inseparability between rights and, on the other hand, duties and responsibilities. And also, the Islamic system elaborated by these scholars more than 1,000 years ago, is it? Yes. Were part of a larger whole. حقوق الله, حقوق العباد, حقوق الإنسان. But however interesting these points may be, they are really tangential to our main theme that in this connection, namely that dignity and rights are clearly established without precedent in the Islamic tradition. Interestingly, and this may be of some interest for people who are interested in Western political thought or philosophy, John Locke, some 2 or 3 centuries before Count Ostrorog, wrote in his letter concerning toleration, 1679, something like this. He wrote, Locke, and who of course was one of the chief architects of modern Western liberalism, he urged his compatriots and co-religionists to emulate the way Muslims made it possible for Jews and Christians of various denominations to freely practice their respective faiths. under Ottoman rule, while Christian denominations in England, he said, raged against each other with inhumane cruelty. More recently, quite recently, 2002, Dame Mary Robinson, the former United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, addressing a symposium on human rights in Islam that was convened in Geneva on the 15th of March, 2002, pointed the following, and these are her actual words. No one can deny that at its core, Islam is entirely consonant with the principle of fundamental rights, including human dignity, tolerance, solidarity, and equality. Numerous passages from the Quran and sayings of the Prophet Muhammad will testify to this. No one can deny, she continues, from a historical perspective, the revolutionary force that is Islam bestowed rights upon women and children long before similar recognition was afforded in other civilizations. There is a lot more, Mr. Chairman, about other things, including diversity and inclusiveness. I don't know how many more minutes will you be able to kindly give me? 5 minutes? The point here is that there are two kinds of diversity which can be mentioned, however briefly because of the time limitations, that are clearly established as I've seen about dignity and the oneness of mankind in the foundational texts of Islam, Al-Quran, and the practice and the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Religious diversity, there is emphasis throughout the Quran on the oneness of God and the diversity of all creatures, human and non-human, animate and inanimate. And had there been time, I think it would have been interesting to mention a few quite interesting examples of this and the witnesses given to them by many others. And then the same thing about ethno-cultural dimensions of ethnicity, of diversity. And this, but again, there is no time to go into that. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I will cooperate with your good self. I will come to the concluding remarks, which I have here very briefly stated. Because Islam as a civilization as well as a faith system is richly endowed and in some respects uniquely endowed with the requisite values and principles, inclusiveness, dignity, and respect for the human worth of men, all men and women, tolerance towards others, in fact more than tolerance, acceptance, and solidarity and cooperation for the common good. And also because the said values and principles have historically been credibly reflected in the actual conduct of Muslim societies down the ages, although there have been failures, and there are still failures, of course, but in the general sweep of history, there have been remarkable achievements, unique in history for Muslims in these respects, however weak they were at any time. And therefore, I feel that Islam and the Ummah, the Muslims of the world, to the extent that they really do understand and appreciate and internalize and express in their thoughts and deeds the teachings of Islam, some of which we have touched upon briefly, have the capacity, the potential to contribute and contribute very effectively to the salvation of humanity together with others. And that would not be contrary to the teachings of Islam at all. We are all together in this pursuit. There are favorable factors which support this argument, including the fact that Muslims, insofar as numbers are concerned, are already about 1/5 of humanity. Numbers in themselves are not important, but together with other things, they are indeed of considerable importance. And again, another point to mention in this connection, there is the fact that Islam, in spite of all what the Muslims are doing to it, in Muslim majority states and others, is the fastest spreading religion in the world, including the Americas and Europe, and has been for quite some time. And all kinds of forecasts show that this is going to continue for as far as we can see. So there are factors to support this. However, as against these factors, there are problems. Among these are widespread sociocultural backwardness and lack of education among contemporary Muslims. Lack of education among contemporary Muslims about Islam itself and about the world in which we live. And of course, if we are to exercise any ijtihad for us and for humanity, let alone humanity, we have to understand the world in which we live thoroughly and profoundly, as well as our faith, as distinct from traditions and culture. And another important factor, which is really a kind of break also, another break, is that many of the Muslims today are split among themselves, tragically, Shia and Sunnah and other things as well. In addition, of course, thirdly, to the fact that there is continued domination and manipulation of nominally independent Muslim societies and states by others to this day. والله أعلم. شكرا جزيلا سيد الرئيس والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think for the very wise presentation. Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, I think I shall invite Dr. Muhammad Farid to speak next, and let Dr. Muhammad Bakar take a breather, because I know he's from somewhere else. Yeah. Now, thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Now, Dr. Muhammad Farid. Currently, the Senior Fellow and Director, the Center for Study of Sharia, Laws and Politics at IKIM. He has worked as a research fellow in ISTEC, and his areas of interest are in Islamic thought, Islamic civilization, and education. And he has written quite a bit. And today, I think we'll be very fortunate to listen to Dr. Muhammad Farid bin Muhammad Sharat. Yeah. Please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good afternoon to all of you. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Professor Dr. Sulaiman, beloved and respected speakers, Professor Mudassir and Professor Muhammad Abu Bakar, distinguished speakers, presenters, and ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for having me here together, although I am not quite sure why I am being positioned or placed in this session together with two great scholars, very senior professors. But after some thought, since this is a conference on wisdom, I believe there must be some wisdom why I am being put here. And maybe the wisdom is that whatever important points that should be said have been said by the first speaker, and whatever is left will be said by the last speaker. So my duty is just to compliment these two great scholars. I think Professor Mudassir has given a very pertinent and important background of the problems that we are facing today, especially the problem of humanity as a whole. And he came to a conclusion that there must be a concerted effort from all humanity, not only Muslim, all humanity, to have a collected kind of wisdom to provide solution to this humanity problem. For me, I fully agree with Professor Mudassir, and I have one point to add. I think one of the problem why we are facing this crisis of humanity is that because knowledge has been seen or has been regarded as only a means to a lower end. Knowledge is not being seen as a wisdom. I think beginning with the statement by Sir Francis Bacon in the 16th century, where he said in one of his statements that knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. I think that is the beginning, especially in the Western civilization, where they have changed or they have transformed the very aim of knowledge from the ethical ones to a more pragmatic ones. From knowledge as a virtue to knowledge just a means to a pragmatic end, especially for power and other worldly ends. And that is why I think the very understanding of the meaning of wisdom must be properly restored, must be properly taught to humanity. And this is one of the points that I will elaborate in my topic, the view of Fakhruddin Ar-Razi concerning hikmah. Although Ar-Razi was a classical theologians for us, but I believe that especially his tafsir is a very monumental one and very beneficial for us, especially in finding solutions among his wisdoms to the problem of humanity that we are facing today. I have also involved in some discussions this morning, especially on the topic of the meaning of wisdom in the Quran, in the Hadith, and in religion as a whole. I think when we talk about wisdom, one of the problem is that this term wisdom has a very wide spectrum of meaning. And it depends on the context you are discussing. From which perspective are you talking and are you discussing? Then wisdom has been interpreted from various and different point of view. But I think two perspectives which are important and have been influencing the interpretation and definition of wisdom. One is the philosophical perspective, and one is the religious perspective. And the philosophical perspective of wisdom will focus more on the knowledge part, while the religious perspective will emphasize on the action part and the goodness that will be achieved based on that action. And that is why when I read Ar-Razi in his tafsir, he said that there are two paths towards the perfection of mankind. First, the knowledge of the essence of things, to know things truly as it is. And second, to gain benefit and goodness through action following the knowledge. And according to Ar-Razi, hikmah is the means to both paths. Hikmah is necessary for us to have knowledge of the thing as it is truly is, and to gain benefit and goodness through action following the knowledge. And that is why, if we look at definitions of wisdom or hikmah in Arabic, especially those explained by Ar-Razi, will boil down to these two main points. Among definitions given by Ar-Razi for hikmah is that the first one, hikmah is the knowledge of the reality of things. Ma'rifatu haqa'iqul ashya'. I think this is, since Ar-Razi is also very well versed in philosophy and also theology, he has commented many Ibn Sina's book and also the philosopher's book. At the same time, Ar-Razi also is a mufassir, a commentator of the Quran. So he has the advantage of bringing together both perspectives that I have mentioned just now, which is the philosophical perspective of hikmah, as well as the Quranic, religious, and prophetic meaning of hikmah. And among the definitions given by Ar-Razi, we can see the combination of the philosophical and also the religious dimensions of hikmah. Among others, he defined hikmah as the knowledge of reality of things, and he also defined hikmah or wisdom as to put things in their proper position. Wad'ul umur mawadhi'iha ala as-sawab was-salah. These two, I think, are influenced. These two definitions are influenced by philosophy, but the third one is being influenced by religion, to bring action in accordance with knowledge. Tawfiq al-amal bil-ilm. And this is what is important if you want to relate what is being said by Professor Mudassir just now. Because for us in Muslim, and according to the Quran and Islamic worldview, action must be followed by knowledge. True knowledge must be followed by proper action. As far as the divisions of hikmah is concerned, I think Ar-Razi, again, following the philosophers, would divide hikmah in two divisions. The first one is theoretical hikmah, theoretical wisdom, and the second one is practical wisdom. And theoretical deals with knowledge of the essence of thing, the comprehension based on proper conceptualization, and this is gained through various channels of knowledge. And I think this is also things that we have to learn from our sages in the past, where one of the problem of the Muslims now, when they talk about something, they don't define it properly. So we have a lot of debates going on, including in Malaysia, between many groups, especially the religious groups. But when they get into debate, they don't define things properly. Therefore, they will be disagreeing from the beginning of the debate until the end, because they just do not agree on definition. So I think this is the wisdom of our scholars in the past. When they talk about wisdom, it is the knowledge of the essence of things. And the knowledge of the essence of things are gained, among others, from a proper definition, ta'rif. And that is why if we look at all the important works of our scholars in the past, in any discipline of knowledge, they will begin their discussion with proper definition. And not only they have a good comprehension and grasp of theoretical knowledge, but hikmah is also about how to practice the knowledge and to get benefit and goodness resulted from this knowledge. And one of the ways of doing this is when man acquires knowledge about the maslahah and the mafsadah of something and act accordingly, especially based on the maslahah of things. And this is also one of the important advice by the Prophet. In one of the hadiths, he said, "Takhallaku bi akhlaqillah." Imitate and try to follow the attributes of God, but of course within our human capacity. I think Imam Al-Ghazali and also Fakhruddin Ar-Razi have written a good book interpreting the 99 names of God, Maqsad Al-Asna fi Sharhi Al-Asma' Al-Husna. A very interesting and excellent book on how we, human beings, can imitate the attributes of God, but of course within our human capacity. And according to Ar-Razi, the most complete manifestation and reflection of this hikmah lies on the prophets of Islam. If we look at most of the prophets mentioned in the Quran, they possess both hikmah, the rational one, the theoretical one, as well as the practical ones. Ar-Razi gave some examples. Prophet Ibrahim, for example, when he asked God to grant him wisdom, he also asked from God to include him with the pious people. Rabbi habli hukman. This is the hikmah nazariyah, the theoretical wisdom. But Prophet Ibrahim also asked from God, wa alhiqni bis salihin, and join me and put me also among the salihin. The same goes with Prophet Musa when he conversed with Allah Ta'ala. Among those things that Allah Ta'ala commanded him is that innani anallahu la ilaha illa ana, the fact that Allah Ta'ala is the real God, which is Tawheed. This is the hikmah nazariyah, or the theoretical wisdom, and it is followed by fa'buduni. You have to submit yourself to me. which is the hikmah amaliyah, the practical wisdom. And also in the case of Prophet Isa, according to Ar-Razi, he is also emphasizing the fact that God asked him to affirm Tawheed, but it must be followed by true submission. Inni Abdullah, thumma qala, wa awsani bis salati waz zakati ma dumtu hayya. So there are both practical and theoretical wisdom manifested by the Prophet, and these are some examples that been given by Ar-Razi as far as the division of wisdom is concerned. There are also discussion this morning about either this wisdom is only it's exclusive to the Prophet, because the Prophet in the Quran are also given not only Al-Kitab but also Al-Hikmah. And many commentators of the Quran would interpret the word hikmah to a nubuwah. So the question is that if hikmah means nubuwah, why, for example, there are people of different category who are not prophets also being called Hakim? For example, the person in the Quran by the name of Luqman is also being called Luqmanul Hakim. He's being given hikmah. So the question arises whether this hikmah is identified or equivalent to nubuwah, or it is higher than nubuwah, or it is different from nubuwah. According to Ar-Razi, nubuwah is the most perfect manifestation of hikmah, because as far as Prophet is concerned, they are given excellence level of reason, akal. At the same time, they are also being given wahi, revelation, which will lead their reason to a better and a proper understanding of religion. Nevertheless, according to Ar-Razi, a wise level of reason, even if he is not a prophet, he has a very good comprehension and level of reason, will also be in line with what the prophets bring through religion. And Ar-Razi gives the example of Luqman, whose wisdom leads to knowledge of the bad nature of shirk. So although Luqman, according to Jumhur Mufassirun, was not a prophet, nevertheless, he also possessed knowledge equivalent to the prophethood. By using his reason, he knows the bad nature of shirk and other things that he advised his son. Therefore, it is necessary, according to Ar-Razi, to follow the Prophet if the reason cannot wisely think about right and wrong of the virtues and vices. Hikmah is also mentioned by the Quran, very much related to goodness. I think this is one of the important points that we have to emphasize about knowledge, because in Islam, only knowledge that brought us or to lead us to goodness is called hikmah. So we disagree with Francis Bacon and other Western pragmatic and secular philosophers who reduce the meaning of knowledge only to the pragmatic and also the worldly aim. I think there is one discussion which is important in the Quran, which worth being discussed here by Ar-Razi, which is the word hikmah mentioned in the verse Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah wal mau'izatil hasanah wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan. the verse that we always refer in referring to a methodology of da'wah. I think Ar-Razi has a very good discussion about the meaning of hikmah in this verse. Why the Quranic verse, when talk about calling people to the way of Lord, begin the methodology of da'wah by hikmah. Call to the way of your Lord with hikmah, and then only good admonition, which is mau'izatul hasanah. And the third one, wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan, argue in the best way. It is because, according to Ar-Razi, the way we deal with the recipient of da'wah, according to Ar-Razi, are two, at least. First, as far as da'wah is concerned, what we are doing is that we establish the knowledge of religion to the recipient. And second, to silence the opponent of da'wah, especially those who are antagonistic, and also which always go against the da'i. So this verse, according to Ar-Razi, explain about three levels of mad'u in our society. The first one is the perfectionists who are seeking true knowledge at the level of certainty. And we have this kind of people in our society where they always want strong arguments, strong dalil, and strong hujjah as far as knowledge is concerned. But we have also in our society people who are hostile and antagonistic to religion. And these kind of people, they may not want to listen to proper hujjah and dalil, but they only want to debate and only want to go against what we are saying. And we have the third category, the common people, where they are not perfectionists in their thinking, but they will accept any good counsel and good admonition as long as it is good and as long as it will comfort their heart. And that is why, according to Ar-Razi, this verse came with three methodology in accordance to the three levels of mad'u. The first one, hikmah, it is for the first category because it is dealing with decisive proof and certain proof, dalil al-yaqiniyah, which is useful to the strengthening of the religious belief. While the second group, mau'izah hasanah, these are for the common people, because according to Ar-Razi, this mau'izah hasanah is the methodology based on conjectural indication and satisfactory proof, al-amarat al-zanniyah wa dalil al-iqna'iyah. So it can satisfy the audience, although not at the level of certainty and at the level of hikmah. But we have also the third level, which is antagonistic and also hostile. So this is the third category that the Quran enjoins, which is the mujadalah. But the point that the Quran is making as far as mujadalah is concerned is that even if we debate with this kind of people, it must be in the best form. Wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan. So even debating with non-Muslim, for example, and people of other religions, we should not use methodology or proof that are confusing and not in line with the true meaning of knowledge. I will come to the conclusion, Prof. I think there are lessons that we can learn from Ar-Razi, at least three lessons. especially when we talk about our society today, in Malaysia in particular. I think one of the problems that we are facing now is extremism, where people involved in many kinds of extremism at many levels, not only the involvement in IS, but I think even in our politics, in our economy, in our education, views that are being put forward are sometimes extreme in nature, and that will not help in bringing a proper way of building our society. So from Ar-Razi, I think one of the important lesson that we can get is that hikmah must be restored properly, because it is the virtue that will help us in restoring proper knowledge and proper way of thinking. The primacy of reason must be put properly against emotion and desire, and the inculcating of the culture of proper understanding. I was teaching in UIA for a few years. What I found out is that the subject on logic is not taught. Only when I came in 2005, it is there in the curriculum, but it's not taught to the students. I think this subject is the most basic subject that must be taught to every and individual students in all universities and madrasah and schools, because at least it helped us in conceptualizing essence of thing in our knowledge, in our thinking, and also to put forward premises and proof in a systematic and proper way. And I think if we continue to be in the position where the culture of proper understanding, proper tabayyun, to explain and analyze things properly, the problem of extremism will still continue in our society. The second lesson is to bring back the virtue of hikmah in education system by reinstating the ethical aim of education. Education should not only aim at producing expertise and professionals, but education must first and foremost aiming at producing a good man, a man with proper theoretical wisdom as well as practical wisdom that will ultimately bring them to knowledge, to goodness. And the third lesson that we can learn from Ar-Razi is how important the intra and inter-religious dialogue being conducted and also organized in the healthy and positive way, based on the strongest proof, and try to respect differences between parties that are involving, that are there in the dialogue. What I realized in some of the religious dialogue that I have involved is that most of the participants that are there representing other religions, they are not from the really religious authority in their religion. Some of them are secular. They just be there in the dialogue to put forward their agenda and not really to have a proper understanding of other religion. So I think in this religious dialogue, either inter-religious or intra-religion, we have to put forward proper objective and also proper methodology in order for us to gain the best result from this dialogues. So for that, I end my session. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad Farid. I think You have successfully, to me, you have successfully demonstrated a convergence of the ideas that were discussed yesterday and also this morning, especially in your conclusions. Ladies and gentlemen, the last speaker for today is none other than Professor Dato' Muhammad Abu Bakar. He is a very well-known scholar. He has also, like Dr. Professor Mudathir, he has been into a lot of places. The Tun Abdul Razak Chairholder in the Ohio, visiting professor in Argentina, visiting fellow, Center of Islamic Studies, Oxford, Fulbright visiting scholar, Washington, visiting fellow, Center of South Asian Studies in Victoria University, Wellington, and then in Cairo. Now, Professor Dato' Muhammad Abu Bakar has also just came here from another conference in Kuala Lumpur. He's our resource person in our group. And Professor Abu Bakar shall speak in an area that he is very well versed in international relations and also in the world politics. So without further ado, Professor Abu Bakar, please.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Mr. Chairman, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, I have chosen the subject of wisdom, worldviews, and world politics. It's quite easy to remember. You have the three W's coming in the series: wisdom, worldviews, and world politics. And I think I'm very much aided by the earlier presentation on the subject of wisdom, especially the last speaker who invoked its meaning by referring to what he calls the understanding of the reality in respect to Al-Razi's definition of it, and secondly, the way you go about in order to derive benefits, in order to get insight from your knowledge about things in your surrounding. So if wisdom is a matter of conjecture, it's a question of a viewpoint, and so long as the baseline remains the same, then the West also has its own share of contribution to the making of a wiser world. So in the context of world politics, or to be more exact, international relation, one finds that wisdom has often and has always graced diplomatic history, foreign policy making, and as such has greatly influenced the making and the remaking of international relations theory. So in politics, people are wiser only after the events. Meaning that having gone through the perilous moment, having gone through the turmoil in life, people are able to gain what I would call crystallized knowledge or distilled knowledge, which can be equated to wisdom. So in regards to the West, the very presence of nation states, especially following the signing of the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648, with the creation of new nation states with its own sovereignty and secularity. So you have had two kinds of people who were in the positions to opine and to prefer their ideas of wisdom in regards to the making of the emerging international relations on the European scene or on the European continental scene. On the one hand, there are those who feel that these various nation states, which were born in the 17th century, having had their independence, having achieved their sovereignty status, must pursue power. They must use power for power. They must increase their power, even if that is going to be at the expense of the rest others. So to them, they are wise enough to have understood power, and to them, they have been wise enough to be able to derive the so-called benefits from this power equation. So for that reason, they just fall back on the experiences of the earlier years of people engaging in international relations, especially by siphoning some of the thoughts of scholars who have studied wars, especially Thucydides, who have written a lengthy piece on the Polynesian War, or on Machiavelli, who have written The Prince, or Morgenthau, who has written Politics Among Nations. All these scholars are of the opinion that since power is crucial in safeguarding the national interest and national security, there should be attempts to augment power, increase power, use power for the sake of power. All because human beings should be dealt with accordingly. To them, human beings are born power crazy. To them, human beings are in a state of nature, jungle-like, vying for power, vying for position, and so on and so forth. So, based on these ideas of wisdom in relation to what they call realism, nation states of the West go by the way of realism, have been pursuing power even at the expense of others. They have been going rampaging on others during the time of colonialism and imperialism and until now. Of course, the scholars concerned, including Machiavelli, Niccolo Machiavelli, the Florentine diplomats, a Renaissance man, somebody who is a man of wisdom, might not go for that, might not be indulging in these pursuits of power for power's sake. But because he was just telling the reality as it was, that the nation states and the city-states of Italy then, like it or not, have to contend with the reality surrounding them. So for the Prince, that is the title of the book even, The Prince by Machiavelli, they have to somehow rise to the occasion in order to embrace the idea of power and to pursue power and so on and so forth. So to him, politics becomes the art of the possible. And for that reason, many of us today who inherited the mantle of politics and political science have been invoking Machiavelli for the same reason. For all you know, Machiavelli has something higher in his contemplation of things. But because, as noted earlier, when hikmah has also to do with the understanding of reality and how to go about deriving benefits out of it. So Machiavelli, like it or not, has to write the famous book, The Prince, to tell away the way of the West in order to advance the cause of the nation state. Likewise, we have Immanuel Kant, the famous philosopher scholar, the man who has advanced the cause of the so-called perpetual peace. To him, in order to achieve his dreams, whether it's Richard Burr or not during his time, you must have republics which practice democracies. And if you have democracies and republics around in the world of nation states, you may not end up in wars. Because to him, democracies do not go to war. This is the trait of wisdom that has been so transmitted even to Bush, to the West today, who says that if you have democracies all around, then you are going to have a better world, a more secure earth, all because democracies don't go to war. By the way, in spite of the idealism, in spite of the wisdom-infested thought of people like Immanuel Kant, the philosopher, the German scholar, and also that was inherited by Woodrow Wilson, the American president, who later on ignited the same deal, leading to the birth of the League of Nations following the First, Second World War. In spite of that, idealism also has its own limitation. All because, while being wise, Why they are able to understand the dreams of these people, they too have forgotten the reality that human beings in their imagination are also constrained by the inner animal instinct. So much so that in spite of the idealism that has been pursued by the idealists, these are the idealists as opposed to the realists of the earlier then you find that they too are faced with these backdrops of opposition from many people. So much so that America, after leading idealism under Woodrow Wilson, not only was not able to advance the cause among the American Senate, because the senators of America debunked it, destroyed it, but also was pushed into a corner whereby the United States had to go to war against nationalist Germany and nationalist Japan, all because they have failed to understand fruit-free wisdom in its fullest meaning. If at all, wisdom of the yesteryear has any great impact until today and has been giving greater and greater benefits is functionalism. And this is another trait in Western political thought referring to foreign policy making or regionalism. In the case of the EEU and now the EU, European Union, there have been premised on this idea of functionalism to the effect that Europe, through their amalgamation, through the proliferation of activities at various levels in Europe, will finally bring about a convergence of interests among the European. So you have the EU born out of this idea or wisdom or thought following the functionalist approach to international relations. Be that as it may, granted that the idealists and the realists have been looking at the world in black and white manner, they also have morphed into new forms. You have now the new realists. You also have the new idealists. People who begin to move forward, advancing their cause by imbibing new ideas, by becoming wiser. So instead of just the realists, you have the new idealists now, who think that man by nature is bad, no doubt. We are living in an anarchical world, no doubt. But we are also conditioned by the systemic relationship with the others, meaning that the international order has also made us what it is. And secondly, you have also the new idealists who, because of transnationalism, because of interconnectedness, because of intersection, because of harmonization of interests arising from trade, migration, tourism, so they think that they are now nearer to their goals of achieving, if not a world government, but something that is more harmonious in nature, in line with the idea of Immanuel Kant when he first spoke about a perpetual peace, etc. But in this warehouse of wisdom, we have heard House of Wisdom, Darul Hikmah, Baitul Hikmah. I've added a bit, the warehouse of wisdom, to refer to history, which is ready, able, and willing to offer ways and means of going about. I suppose that the idealists and the realists have not exhausted history. History is a fountain of knowledge which has not been fully tapped, even by the idealists and the realists. And for that reason, you have a new branch of scholars who have been offering new approaches to international relations. Now you have the constructivists, they call it. People who try to construct others based on their ideas and identity through migration, tourism, student exchange. So much so that you know the other better through the prisms of the so-called new identities, new ideas, etc., etc. So meaning that people are able to gang up better when they understand each other better. As the English says, they are not strangers. They are friends whom you have never met. So having seen others, having interacted with others, the constructivists are able to construct and reconstruct, debunk and build new ideas about the others by bringing bridges across continent, by bringing bridges across country, to the point that the old ideas pertaining to idealism and realism have been put away or been laid away or have been revised in order to suit the times of our constructivists. Two, you have also the environmentalists in international relations. We call it the green theory, by referring to people who understand the need to overcome environmental degradation, a result of earthquake, a result of the transmission of diseases, as a result of transnational crime, etc., etc. And so these people, the so-called proponents of grey theory, also see the world in a larger context. After all, as the English also says, the whole is bigger than the sums of its parts. So if you are able to understand the turmoil in another country, the earthquake in another region, you understand the disease-ridden place of Latin America, and knowing fully well that disease, crimes, etc. could spread across borders following rampant globalization. So if you are able to chip in by doing your share in order to overcome the malaise, the turmoil, then in all probability, the whole humanity will be better off. So this is part of that wisdom that has been imbibed in the forms of green theory. And on the other part of it, on the other extension of it, you have the so-called feminists. All the way through, international politics or international relations has been the monopoly or the near monopoly of man. Man sees man in international relations from the perspective of man, simply because international relations has always been a question of diplomacy or war, conflict or cooperation. Who are the diplomats? Man. Who are the soldiers? Man. So for the feminists, there has to be a liberation of a kind from the bondage of all. They are not going to be the captive wife anymore, who simply get rotten, and this is happening in the West, not in the Muslim country, as a result of being strangled by the so-called male chauvinism. So there have been this bra burning on the one hand, when they protest about putting on bras and so on. On the other, they want to be feminists of the highest order, to be better off than men even. Not just equating them to men, but better off the man. So you have the radical feminists. But in the area of international relations, you have others who say that, why not include and incorporate part of the deal by bringing in to bear the presence of women in diplomacy, in wartime as factory workers, as nurses, and so on and so forth. Secondly, by imputing the role of women, simply because they are supposed to be better, softer, and therefore is able to blunt any draft in times of war. So women's contribution can be the reverse of man, and that also should be incorporated as part of this wisdom, part of ways and means of building theories of international relations. So feminism has made some way to incorporate and transmit the ideas pertaining to the roles of women, following years of subjection and subjugation, which has been part of Western history. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, the whole thing is not over. All because international relations has always been described as being in a state of fluidity. So much that you have famous description, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and the friend of my enemy is my enemy. You can see this now. It's happening between US and Russia, US and Japan, US and India, you name it. The friend of my friend, the friend of my enemy is my enemy, and the enemy of my enemy is, and this is also happening right in the bosoms of Malaysian politics. So you don't have to go far. And the second part of it all is that there's no such thing as permanent friend, no permanent enemy. What there is permanent national interest. So whether you like it or not, nations operate at that level, and according to these so-called tenets or dictates of the scholars or the practitioners of foreign policy. So in other words, in order to go into the future, into the wombs of the future, you are faced with imponderables. You do not know what is going to happen next. That's one. So you need additional wisdom. Secondly, now, even at the national level, many nations are subject more and more to the gyration of domestic politics. The changes within the country can change the outlook of the country, therefore can change the flow of foreign policy. And this is also taken care of In other words, you need to have better wisdom in order to understand the dynamics and the mechanics of nation building, and therefore, by extension, diplomacy and even war. After all, war is considered diplomacy by other means. Number 3, we have been so conditioned by science to the extent that we feel that we can dissect human being, delineate his role simply through scientific methods. But there are areas which are beyond comprehension scientifically, which are not grasped by scientific investigation. And as such, there are now forays into so-called religion in order to understand the rule of people. Are they jihadists or suicidal bombers? What is the psychology behind it? So the West also began to pontificate on this very idea of wisdom in relation to the makeup of human beings. Are they subject of pure scientific research, or they can also be understood by referring to other ways and means, including through religion itself. So religion has come into play. Little knowing that the United States of America, in spite of following the realist and the idealist version, as I've just mentioned, have been premising its foreign policy on religion for a long, long time. There has been Protestantism in America. There have been these very people who have undergirded the foreign policy development of the United States. These are the very people who, infused with the ideas about new conservatism, determine and become the shapers and the makers of American foreign policy. And on top of that, as a result of this, more and more scholars have begun to focus on not just idealism of old, not just on religion of the yesteryear, not just on constructivism, which is being popularized now, but also on other things which were beyond comprehension in the earlier year. So if wisdom is distilled knowledge, if wisdom is crystallized experience, then the West, by going the way of the West, have been really using it and transmitting it for a long, long time. So for us, who should be better off as the repository on the one hand of this wisdom, and who are faced with a different sets of problems arising from our own predicament, we should fall back on religion all the more. After all, in Surah Al-Hujurat, it is mentioned that, oh, you are created into male and female, into nations and tribes, so that ye know each other. So to be able to understand each other is part of wisdom. And to derive benefits so that ye know each other, which means the benefits from each other's presence, is part of another wisdom that should be pursued in connection to international politics. So, ladies and gentlemen, my apology for not being able to distribute my paper in time. I have it in draft form. I managed to type it into the night, all because of another engagement this morning in University Technology Malaysia. So I was not able to meet the deadline. By the way, if Professor Hamid wants a piece of my mind in regards to wisdom, worldviews, and world politics, I will try and somehow upgrade and update it and add additional meat to make it more presentable. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think that was a very excellent presentation by Professor Dato' Mohd Bakar. And I'm sure that he will be able to. I think the Secretariat also have made recording of Prof's presentation just now. Yeah, then we can also work on transcribing that, Prof. Then we pass it to you to add meat or whatever. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, it is a big relief for me actually that we have ended this session and we have enough time to prepare for the closing ceremony. Yeah? So I now pass it over to the Secretariat, please. Yeah.
Thank you.
Since we still have some time, I think we can entertain a few questions. If members of the floor have questions for the speakers, please. Ada siapa? Kalau ada. Ada? Any members of the floor, please? Ada? Ada. Yes, sir. Yes, Prof.
Hello.
Assalamu alaikum. I really enjoy with the three papers through this session, but there is some comments about our Dr. Muhammad Farid when he makes categories for the types of wisdom. He referred to some verses of Quran related to our prophets Ibrahim and Musa and Isa, and makes two categories for the wisdom, the theoretical and practical. And then when he come to the beliefs, Aqidah part, he divide this Aqidah for the theoretical and the Sharia for the practical. Really, for my understanding, I'm not, I cannot agree upon of this division and making the categories with this way, because it should be Aqidah all theoretical and practical at the same time. We cannot say I believe with the God and I am not doing the things which it's related to our Aqidah. And wisdom, it's something combined all together. And we come with the last verse of Surah Al-Nahl, ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة. This verse of Quran makes types of the people who understand the da'wah to accept it or to agree with. We have other verses in Quran, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَقُلْ لَهُمْ فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ قَوْلًا بَلِيغًا, which it means you have to speak to other at the level they can accept you, or you can they can understand you. So it's not only 3 or 4 levels, whatever levels of the people, we talk to the child with the way, not to the intellectual or the wisdom or this or that. It's many, many different levels. And our Prophet ﷺ also said, أمرت أن أخاطب الناس على قدر عقولهم, which it means we have to consider the people mind when we discuss with them. High, low, medium, whatever. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay. Dr. Farid, you got the question? All right. Or perhaps discrepancy between.
Thank you very much, Professor Mujahid, and I partially agree with you because I am putting forward the explanation given by Al-Razi, Fakhruddin Al-Razi, and I believe he also, when he divided this theoretical and also practical wisdom, it is not a very strict kind of division. It is a very dynamic and flexible, and in fact, in Islam, you cannot have theoretical knowledge alone without having it being practiced. So, but we understand because Al-Razi is a man of system, because he is a theologian. He thinks in a very systematic way. We can see that in the Mafatih Al-Ghaib, Tafsir Al-Kabir, he always wants to relate one verse to another verse, one chapter to another chapter in a more harmonious and rational way. So that's why I think when he divided that ilm and amal, it is just a division of category. But as far as the practice is concerned, it is very dynamic. You can always, like Aqidah, it always have an implication of amal. The same thing with that category of mad'u, that we have 3 levels of mad'u based on this hikmah, mau'izah, and mujadalah. That is also very, very dynamic and flexible. Of course, in one society, you will have all categories in one, even in one house, you have all categories, and you have to be very dynamic in approaching every person at their level of reason. Ala qadri uqulihim. Wallahu a'lam.
Any others, please? Ada sesiapa lagi yang nak mengajukan soalan? Any other question, please? Kalau tak ada, I think we pass to Azman.
Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Professor Emeritus Dato' Dr. Sulaiman Mat Yassin. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Yang Berbahagia Professor Tan Sri Dr. Muhammad Yusof Noor to be on stage to present a memento to the distinguished speakers and chairman of the session. Memento. Mementos. Terima kasih. Thank you, Tan Sri. First, I would like to invite Yang Berbahagia Professor Datuk Paduka Muhammad Abu Bakar to receive a memento from Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Datuk. Sorry.
Oh, I see. According to the schedule, 5 o'clock. We can read the poem.
Okay, once again, I would like to call Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri. They are ready now. Oh. Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri. Okay, they are ready now. So once again, I would like to call Yang Berbahagia Professor Datuk Paduka Muhammad Abu Bakar to receive a mentor from Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri. Secondly, I would like to invite Yang Berbahagia Dr. Muhammad Farid Muhammad Sharhan. Next, I invite distinguished Professor Dr. Mudathir Abdul Rahim to receive a mentor from Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri. Lastly, I invite the chairman of the plenary session, Bahagia Professor Emeritus Dato Dr. Sulaiman Mayatin, to receive a memento from Bahagia Tan Sri. Thank you, Tan Sri. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, please show our appreciation to all the speakers and the chairman of the session. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Alhamdulillah, we have come to the final event of the International Seminar on Cultures and Religious Wisdom.
حضورنا الكرام، هكذا قد وصلنا بحمد الله إلى ختام مؤتمر الحكمة الدولي في الثقافة والأديان.
We are very honored to have with us here this afternoon the chairman of the organizing committee and director of the Global Wisdom Academy, University Islam Malaysia, to give a final remarks.
نحن نتشرف جدا بأن يكون هنا معنا اليوم رئيس اللجنة التنظيمية للمؤتمر مدير أكاديمية حكمة العالمية الأستاذ دكتور عبد الحميد عبد الله.
I would like to call upon Professor Dr. Abdul Hamid Abdullah to present us with a final remark.
Yes. That one, and three. No, mine is not close. Mine final only, Chef. Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang Bahagia Tan Sri Professor Dr. Muhammad Yusuf Noor, our President of UIM, paper presenters, participants, moderators, senior officers of the university and staff of UIM. I choose to say a few words in this last session of the two-day seminar. This is the closing session, and it should be brief. What I would like to say is just very simple. After hearing you for the last 2 days, and following this seminar, I'm tempted to say what else to say during this short closing session. Maybe I'm not going to say anything anymore about wisdom today. Tomorrow maybe, and the rest of the time. But I think you have enough of wisdom for the last 2 days. And I'm not going to give any more to overdose you with wisdom. Please go back and digest whatever that you have heard and you have learned from this 2-day seminar on a subject very difficult, very elusive, very subjective, and very abstract, called wisdom. Nobody has yet tried to say precisely what wisdom is, so I'm not going to say it. We all must look for it. But this is just the beginning of a long journey towards a very noble intention, which is to publish a book called Encyclopedia of Wisdom one day in a few years' time. And the journey has begun quietly before the seminar and quite loudly and publicly with this seminar. Before this seminar, not many people knew about our intention of publishing an encyclopedia of wisdom. But now more people know about it. So we cannot keep this a secret anymore. And the journey has to be traveled and has to arrive at that destination. Otherwise, UIM, not a good example. I would like to answer maybe the question that everybody is asking after the seminar. What is next? Okay, let me explain to you what we are going to do next. First, all the papers presented in this seminar will be published in a form of seminar proceedings in 1 month's time. So I will urge all the paper presenters to come up with a complete paper within a month and submit to us. We are going to publish it in a form of a proceeding first, so that we have a record of papers presented in this seminar. And then, as an academician, I will be very interested to select certain papers of similar themes to be published in a series of UIM Wisdom series. Or I would like to suggest to the university we call UIM Wisdom series, number 1, number 2, and so on, and publish certain papers of quality of similar subject on wisdom. Of course, we will have people helping us in the form of editing the papers. We will do it, and that will take a longer time, some time, much more time than the proceeding. And then, of course, from all these papers, we are going to go through them, we are going to dig from them all the subjects that we think can become the entries for the encyclopedia. And after we have identified and listed out all the entries for 1 or 2 volumes first, we will identify the contributors to these topics, to these entries. And I can assure you, some of the paper writers now, some of the presenters in the seminar would be contacted to contribute to the writing of these entries for the encyclopedia. We're not sure which team we're going to choose first, but cultural religion can be the initial volumes of the seminar, of the encyclopedia, of the encyclopedia. That is the plan. And our target date is, of course, early 2020, not later than June 2020. We'll see UIM coming up with a set of encyclopedia on wisdom. God willing, with God blessing. And of course, our hard work and your help, so that this intention can be realized. Of course, I would also like to say a few words of apologies and thank you to everybody. To all participants of this seminar, I, on behalf of the university and the organizing committee, would like to apologize for all the shortcomings and unintended mistakes in conducting this seminar. maybe mistakes done before the seminar, during the seminar, and probably after the seminar. So we want to apologize for that. Sorry if all this affect your convenience in your stay here and in your participation in the seminar. We did not intend to make those mistakes. And then finally, I want to, of course, say thank you very much. I have no other words to say except thank you, thank you, thank you to everybody who have participated in the seminar in the form of paper presenters or paper presentation, in the form of moderators of sessions. I especially would like to say thank you for your readiness to come forward to participate in the seminar in these forms, because maybe our notice to you is not very long, it's short, and during your busy schedule, you managed to respond positively, and we put together, maybe we are surprised also, we didn't expect, we put together some 35 papers from various people, various subjects, various topics to make this seminar a reality. I don't want to say a success, I don't want to say a great success, but I just want to say a reality. We make this seminar possible. It happened with maybe not very long notice, short notice to some people. And sometimes we missed certain things during our effort to get people to write papers. And because of that, I must thank you very much for the paper presenters, especially to the paper presenters especially, and to our list of moderators who readily came forward to help us. Thank you very much. And of course, I would like to say thank you also to our participants. You make the seminar work. Without participants, any seminar would not be a reality. Participants are very important. And for your readiness to participate in the seminar, and you also pay something to us, I want to say thank you very much. This is not going to be the last seminar, going to be seminar, seminar, and seminar after this, okay? Or we can call it conference, call it convention, whatever. But intellectual discourse on wisdom will go on from time to time in the years to come. Of course, I want to say thank you very much to our beloved President of UIM for his wise guidance and sometimes tolerance, and of course patronage for us to organize this seminar. He has been very instrumental to us, and we want to say thank you very much to you, Tan Sri. I have been given the honor to serve you and to serve the university. I hope I can handle this job. Thank you. And of course, last but not least, to my dear members of the organizing committee and subcommittees for working very hard, helping me to make this seminar a reality. Thank you very much. I cannot say anymore. Thank you and thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Professor Dr. Abdul Hamid Abdullah. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with a great pleasure that I invite Yang Berbahagia Professor Tan Sri Dr. Muhammad Yusof Noor, President of University Islam Malaysia, to deliver the closing speech.
شكرا الأستاذ الدكتور عبد الحميد عبد الله. حضورنا الكرام، قبل أن ننهي حلقتنا العلمية نتشرف بدعوة الأستاذ الدكتور تان سري محمد يوسف نور رئيس الجامعة الإسلامية بماليزيا لإلقاء كلمة الختام.
Please welcome Member Tan Sri.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah alladhi qala fi kitab al-aziz yu'ti al-hikmata man yasha. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulil qail man yuridillahu bihi khairan yufaqihu fid din wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. My dear vice professors, paper presenters, and wise audience, thank you to Professor Hamid for making my task easy this afternoon. Now I know the reason why he told me before I came to this room, please make my speech short. The secret is that because he want to say a lot of things, and that has helped me a lot to shorten my speech, just to appreciate and thanks to everybody, especially to those who presented, I think, precious papers since yesterday for the sake of our future. It's not just for this university's future, but for the Ummah future. And I believe it is going to be a little bit unethical to me to burden you with another lecture by looking and by judging the physical situation. I think you are not ready to listen to any speech anymore. It is time to rest, to relax, and to think what is next for us to do. I in fact, wanted to explain about what's behind this gathering. Part of it has been explained by Professor Hamid. It is quite a very challenging task to come out with something like this, especially we are going to involve in a quite difficult area to explore on things explored by those people in the previous days, during the previous philosophers in our life. Because wisdom is not new. And another thing I think which is important, to make wisdom is really felt. We cannot have too many wise people in the world. Having too many wise people around will reduce the quality of wisdom, I think. I may be wrong. I think Professor Mudassir will not agree with me. That's why the secret behind the number of the most wisdom is only one. That tells us the importance of limited number of parties involved in wisdom. I believe we all know who is the most wise one in the world. There's only one. We cannot have two, cannot have three. The most wise one is one. And we need, if the whole population in this world are all wise, can you imagine what's the quality of wisdom at that time? Meaning that if you organize a seminar like this, of course, sometimes we think we need to see more people participating. But in order to achieve such a goal, I think we have to limit the number of people involved in this kind of activities. That's why I really appreciate the wise audience attending this conference. And if we are not wise today, we may be wise tomorrow. Because it is something like, although Professor Muhammad has once said about the definition, but of course there are a lot of definitions about wisdom. It is an act of thinking. It is an act of thinking. Ethically, of course, there are a lot of people involved in thinking, but I think thinking based on ethics is one of the qualities that wisdom has to have. I promise you not to burden you with another speech. I'm here just to appreciate, to thank everybody who participated in this convention. And let us pray together, inshallah, the project for the benefit of everybody, especially something coming from Muslim world, to tell the world that wisdom encyclopedia is something come from Muslim community. That's our intention. We will welcome on any suggestions towards achieving our objective, inshallah. I think that's all that I want to say. Once again, I would like to repeat my appreciation, thanks, and we hope we will be meeting again in other sessions. And my special thanks to those who come from outside Malaysia, from Brunei, and some, I think, due to certain reason, they have left. But I think we will continue our efforts to work together as a team, no matter where they are. Inshallah, have a safe journey home. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
شكرا الأستاذ الدكتور تنسري على كلمتكم المنطلقة من الحكمة والحرص عليها. حضورنا الكرام، فلكل بداية نهاية، فنلتمس منكم العذر إن ورد منا بعض التقصير، فالكمال لله وحده والنقصان من شيم الإنسان، ويبقى عزاؤنا أنها تجربتنا الأولى، وسنسعى لتطويرها بإذن الله في السنوات القادمة، آخذين من الاعتبار كل الملاحظات والتوصيات.
Ladies and gentlemen, Alhamdulillah, we have now come to the end of the International Seminar on Cultural and Religious Wisdom. On behalf of the organizing committee and University Islam Malaysia, I would like to express my utmost gratitude to all distinguished guests, speakers, and participants for your kind, active participations and support in making this seminar a success. Let us all be guided by all the things that we have learned and heard throughout the two-day seminar, and be able to understand and uncover the secret of wisdom in our culture and religion. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Before we part, please accept this verse from us. Kalau ada jarum yang patah, jangan simpan di dalam peti. Kalau ada silap dan salah, harap sudi maafkan kami. Which in short means, please forgive us for our shortcoming. We will meet again perhaps in the next series of international seminar on wisdom. May all of you have a safe journey home. All of you are invited for a light refreshment which are being served outside the auditorium. With that, once again, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dah jemput tadi. Excuse me, there is a short announcement. Tomorrow there will be Nadi Dialogue Malaysia. The topic is Masa Depan Kita, Ancaman Teroris dan Keselamatan Negara. The dialogue will begin at 11 in the morning. So all are invited. Thank you.